You ready for us?
Yeah, whenever you guys want to go.
World, are you ready for the Vetter Brothers podcast?
Oh, yeah.
Also known as Read Between the Lines.
This is how we do it. This is how we do it. Episode 2. This is how we do it. Read between the lines. Boom, boom. And so we are going to dive into the beginning, which is why we started it, 2009, 2010. What the fuck were we thinking? It was a recession at the time. Very inexperienced, no manufacturing expertise, no money, just, I guess, a dream.
The process and a dream.
The process and a dream. So Matt asked me a question about why did I start it. And so I graduated college in 4 years like a fool and dove right into work. And it wasn't very fun and it wasn't great. And it just didn't make a lot of sense to me to show up to something that I didn't really care about, that really didn't have any purpose, that the upside was tied to some person telling me that they thought I was doing a good job. And so, I left my first job, I left my second job, but then I started getting worried that I was just gonna keep bouncing around from jobs and be a total fucking failure. And so I made a commitment to myself that whatever job I got next, I was gonna make work. So I took a job in insurance, which also wasn't fun, but I treated it like being a college or professional athlete. And so every morning I woke up at 3:30, I went to the gym, I was in my cubicle at 6 a.m., I cold called till 5 in the afternoon. Matt, you interned with me for
a dark 2 weeks. I was not ready for that. I wasn't ready for the first few years of testing release either.
So I just brainwashed myself with metrics and a point system that I was going to make insurance work. Oh. And then I brought in 3 of the 5 largest customers that insurance brokerage had. And I was only 24, 25 years old. So I went to the owner of it and I said, hey man, I'm going to make my life this insurance situation. I want to be a partner. And I didn't even finish speaking. And he was like, no. You make enough money for being 25 years old, that's all you get. And in that singular moment, I thought to myself, well, I'm gonna then start something on my own. And so I've been reading Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, listening to the rare recordings of old Nappy Hill. And so I was just kind of in a mindset to be aware of any sign that the universe may or may not be sending me of what I should do and send or commit to with my life. And I kept thinking about the kid that worked at a grocery store down south and thought about basically having just normal checkout lines, who then invented Piggly Wiggly, who then, sold it for a couple $1 million back in God knows when. And I was like, something's gonna come my way. And so I would go every day at lunch home and I would stand on my head in the dark in my room and try and figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And so Mom had been making 2-liter bottles of salad dressing for all of us in our college homes, and I was living in a townhouse with Genevieve. And I came home and this 2-liter bottle of salad dressing was missing. And I just kind of sat there. I looked everywhere it would be. And then I started calling people. So I called neighbors that were married or had families. Maybe they had taken it. And then I finally get to Smitty Lax, who eats fast food every day, who rides a scooter, who didn't have a full-time job. And he was the last person I thought in a million years would need salad dressing. So I call him and I'm like, hey man, random question. This is noon on a Wednesday. Have you seen my salad dressing? And he was like, yup. Woke up this morning, was jonesing for it, knew the code to your house, hopped over on the scooter, got it. Now I'm crushing a salad. And I was like, well, can you bring it back? Yeah, you can make me lunch. And I was like, okay. And I sat there and I go, the dressing's never gotten old. We ate it every night since we were, I don't know, I guess I was 8 or 10 or something like that. Every night, every tailgate, for every sport we played, everybody said, bring your mom's salad dressing. We had given the recipe to a couple people who we've had to since kill. They're not here, rest in peace. No, I'm kidding. And no one could make it properly. And I thought to myself, well, this has to be a thing, right? This is a good idea, but clean salad dressing has to exist. So I finished eating lunch with Smitty. I drove to Whole Foods to see if clean salad dressing existed. So I went to the refrigerated set. It didn't exist. I checked every label. I went to the shelf-stable aisle. Didn't exist. I couldn't believe it. Drove to Fresh Market. Same thing. Didn't exist. Drove to Safeway. Didn't exist. Drove to Giant. Didn't exist. And so I'm sitting there. I'm like, this can't be real. It's 2009. How does clean salad dressing not exist? That doesn't have thickening agents, doesn't have refined sugar, doesn't have citric acid, doesn't use dehydrated garlic or something like that. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And so I called Genevieve and I said, I'm going to quit my job, which I was making a lot of money for a 25-year-old. I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to start a salad dressing company. I just wanted to see her reaction. And she goes, that's the greatest idea I've ever heard. I just have a bizarre feeling this is going to work. So then I called Mom and I said, hey, what are your thoughts of me taking your salad dressing recipe and starting a company and getting it into Whole Foods? That will never work. I go, well, I'm going to start it regardless. So I'm going to need that recipe. And if you want to be a part of it, I would love for you to be a part of it. But if you don't want to be, I'm doing it anyway. And so then I called you boys individually and I said, hey, what are your thoughts? And you were just about to graduate.
Well, I was getting done my eligibility.
Okay, you were getting done your eligibility for lacrosse.
Yep.
You were still in college, and you both said, let us know if it works. Seems like a good idea. The dressing's delicious. And so then I called Genevieve back and I said, all right, I'm going to take $15,000 and I'm basically going to light it on fire. And so if this doesn't work, then it doesn't work, but I'm going to try because she was not pregnant yet. We didn't have kids. We had some money in the bank account. At the time, I had a great credit score. And I was like, it's fucking now or never. And so I then started calling the local Annapolis Whole Foods. I spoke to somebody. They told me, no thanks. I got a little discouraged, but I kind of feel like they don't know what they're talking about. So then I kept calling, and then I got in touch with Keith Spriggs. And so I'm like, hey man, I got this world famous salad dressing. You got to try it. And he's like, bring it in, noon on Friday, I'll try it. I'm like, okay. So I call Mom and I'm like, I got a meeting with Whole Foods. I need you to make the greatest batch of salad dressing ever. And she's like, what are you talking about? We're not a company. We don't have a name. You don't have a bottle. We have nothing. And I was like, just make the salad dressing. And so she makes this phenomenal batch. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, what are you going to put it in? And I'm like, give me crunchy romaine lettuce in a Tupperware container. And it had a red lid, I'll never forget. And I put it in, I walked in with a fork and a napkin. And the guy's like, all right, where's your packaging? And I'm like, dude, it's lunch. I brought you a salad. Why would you just want to stare at dressing? Don't you want to try it? And so he looks at me like I'm on drugs, takes this Tupperware container lid off, takes the dressing out, licks the dressing off, doesn't eat it, and goes, you got something special here. You need to call the regional office. And I was like, you call the regional office for me. I'll show up for the meeting and we'll go from there. So he called Eric Brown, shout out to Eric Brown. And they were currently under construction of the new Annapolis Whole Foods, because this is February 2009. And they were opening like in the May 1st area. I think technically they opened on Cinco de Mayo, but we just claim May 1st because it's easy to remember. I guess Cinco de Mayo is easy too. And I go in, same thing. Where's your packaging? I brought you a salad. And he tries it and he goes, this is really good. Fill out this much paperwork. And if you do that, I'll buy 4 cases and you can demo them for the grand opening. So I call you guys, I call Genevieve, I call Mom, and I'm like, we're going to get a shot. We're going to be a fucking company. And so then I start Googling how to become a food manufacturer. Each page was the most complex, mind-blowing shit show in the history of the world. It was like a HACCP plan. What is a HACCP plan? I literally Googled HACCP plan for salad dressing companies. And it was like this elaborate dressing, HACCP plan from like probably Ken's Foods or something. And so I just fucking printed it out and I sent it to Whole Foods. And the guy calls me, goes, this is your HACCP plan? Like, this is unbelievably advanced. I'm like, we are super, super advanced.
It's like we told you it was famous.
We're world famous food manufacturers. So I Google my way through all that jazz. But then I got to, there were a couple hiccups. One, I needed a certified kitchen, which we did not have. And 2, we needed to figure out nutrition facts and everything else, and that was going to be like $1,000, which we also at the time did not have. And so I find a bottle. What's that guy's name that was on our club lacrosse team? He did our label.
Oh,
McAdam.
Yeah. Yes. And he was like a part-time graphic designer and did it. And we printed the labels off of Avery shipping labels from High Star Copy, and we had him cut it to the size of the square bottle.
Yeah, I'll never forget having to hand stamp every Best Buy date.
Well, no, originally it was Born On, because Bud Light at the time was talking about how fresh their beer was.
Yeah.
And so we did Born On dates, which confused the shit.
Yeah,
You're
this,
like, your
this
dressing's
expired
bad.
3 days ago.
Like it says Born On, that's when we made it. We made it 2 days ago. They're like, it's expired. That's when we made it.
No.
We changed that real quick. That confused people.
What were the other names you were considering outside of Tessie Mae's? Like originally?
Three Brothers Salad Dressing Company. The joke was like Greg's Own,
Yeah, Greg's
because of
Own.
Newman's Own. It was like, that's the dumbest name ever. I actually have them written down. One was like, I asked Mom, what do you think of when you think about the salad dressing? Because it didn't have a name yet. She's like, there's like a zing. Like, you should call it Lemon Zingers. And I was like, that's the worst name I've ever heard in my
I
life.
think that's like an alcoholic shot too.
It probably is, right? It could have been,
Lemon
we could have
Zinger.
named it Fuzzy Navel. and then we came up with Tessie Mae's Organic, because originally that was the name, not Tessie Mae's All Natural. And because that was her email address, tessiemay@aol.com. And that just like, when I wrote it out, it was like that was it, right? It was like, we're gonna name it Tessie Mae's. It's Mom's recipe. 3 brothers take their mom's salad dressing to the world. Like, that all makes perfect sense, and I can commit to that. And so, but again, going back, we didn't have a certified kitchen. So I was trying to sell Brian Toomey insurance for Norris Capital and Adam's Ribs, because I was still hustling insurance. And so I'm in this meeting, I had just met him, and he's like, yeah, man, I'm not giving you my insurance. And I'm like, why not? He's like, I just got a lot going on, we're thinking about switching the barbecue sauce at Adam's Ribs and maybe the dressing. And I'm like, I got a really great dressing. And he goes, everybody's got a great dressing. I go, it's going into Whole Foods in May. He goes, I'll tell you whether or not it's going in. And so I drop him off a sample, and anybody that knows Brian Toomey, he will give you, he's an optimistic person by nature, but he will come off as the most pessimistic dude on the planet. And so I drop off this dressing, and he calls me the next day, and he's like, oh my God, I've never had such a delicious salad dressing in my life. It's like the smooth and butteriness of the oil and whatever's going on, and then the lemon comes after it like a sweet summer's breeze. He literally said that. I was like, what are you, a fucking poet? Like, what's going on here? And he's like, how much is it? I'd like for Adam's Ribs to do it. And I go, this is how much it costs me, because we were buying the ingredients from fucking Whole Foods.
Right.
And then making it and then selling it back to them.
Yeah.
And he was like, I can't do that. Like, I pay like 11 cents for 5 gallons from frickin' Cisco or something. And I go, okay, well, you're not going to buy it, but can I use your kitchen? Because I need a certified kitchen to make it. He goes, no chance. I do not want the Department of Health unnecessarily in my building doing twice the amount of work. I maintain Adam's Ribs, and that's what I'm maintaining. I don't want you in there messing up all my stuff. And I'm like, okay, like I'll find something else. So then I start calling churches because they have a certified kitchen.
Right.
I'm calling, anybody that will pick up my phone call. We went and visited a bunch of places. They were disgusting. And Toomey was on vacation. He wasn't going to be back for 2 weeks. And we needed to submit all the paperwork. So I just put Adam's Ribs down. And I was like, I'm going to convince this dude to let me use this. So he gets back from vacation. Whole Foods is already processing it. I had ordered the walkthrough with the Department of Health. So they're showing up basically like 3 days after Toomey arrives back from vacation. I'm like, yep, it's over in Eastport. Can't wait to take you on a tour. So I'm just blowing up his phone. So he finally calls me. He goes, what? I'm like, I need your kitchen from 10:30 at night until your morning staff shows up at like 5:30 or 6 in the morning. And he's like, no. I go, I'm not taking no for an answer. And he goes, you're going to steal shit.
That is such a
And I go,
thing to
what
say.
could I steal? Uncooked pork and fountain sodas? What the fuck are you talking about? He goes, well, that's a good point. He goes, there's not really much to steal. I go, dude, just let me do it in the beginning. And if it doesn't work out, no harm, no foul. And he was like, all right, but I swear to God, if anything goes wrong with that audit, like that's on you. Everything, if anything needs to get fixed, that's on you. All this shit's on you. And I'm like, yeah, no problem, man. So we go for the walkthrough, and I had to like get a mesh bag to put our ingredients in with a lock and put it and like tape off an area that was just our stuff. And the dude has a ruler, and he's measuring distances from the ground where the bottom rack is and from the back wall. And I'm like, this is not good. And so we get to the parking lot, and he goes, yeah, I'm not going to pass you. And, there's a couple things that need to be fixed in there. So I'm going to write them up, and I'm going to send it to them to fix. And I'm like, hold right there, brother. I convinced this dude to let me use his kitchen. You are not failing me. I have a opportunity in like 3 weeks at Whole Foods. What needs to be fixed? I'll walk in there right now and fix it. He was like, well, the bottom rack is a 1/2 inch too low. And I'm like, well, what else? You needed 12 inches distance from, you know, the lemons to the garlic versus the meat products that are on the, and I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, my whole life is coming down to this moment and you are gonna fail me? I'm like, no. There's gonna be a book one day and I'm gonna tell the story of this moment, and I need you to go back in with me and pass me. He's like, Jesus Christ, man. And I was like, tell me what needs to be fixed. So I go back in, I fix the shit. He walks back in, signs off on it, and goes, there you go, man, good luck. And so then Toomey calls and he's like, how'd it go? I'm like, we passed with flying colors, no problems at all. And he goes, all right, man, you know, let me know how it goes. So I think everything's done. And I submitted it all to Whole Foods. And they go, no, you didn't get the packaging certified by the state. I'm like, well, I got the labels approved, and I got this, and I got that. And he goes, no, you got to get everything, finished product, submit it to the state. They have to approve it all. So I'm tracked the woman down, and I'm like, hey, what do I need to do to get this packaging and the product certified? And she goes, you know, you got to put it in an envelope, you got to mail it in. It's going to take 3 to 6 months, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, my life is on the line, and I need your help. I will drive to wherever you are, and I need you to look at the packaging, and I need you to approve it. And she's like, what do you mean your life's on the line? So I tell her the whole thing. And she goes, I'm taking lunch in 30 minutes. She's downtown Baltimore City. I'm in Annapolis. She goes, you meet me in the lobby. As I'm walking out to a restaurant, I'll look at it. I jump in the car. I drive 120 miles an hour from Annapolis to Baltimore, get there in like 20 minutes. And I'm in there holding up, I don't know what she looks like, right?
Yeah.
I'm holding up this bottle in the lobby, looking at people, hey, and she comes off the elevator. She goes, you must be Greg. I'm like, yep. And so she looks at it and she goes, well, how are you gonna seal it? I go, I don't know, how do you seal it? She goes, well, you need a sealing machine. Usually people use like a shrink sleeve or something. And I'm like, how much does a shrink sleeve machine cost? And she's like, a couple $1,000. I'm like, well, Maker's Mark uses wax. And she's like, well, you could use wax, that seals it. And I go, well, then I use wax. She goes, you bring me back the bottle tomorrow with it sealed with wax, and it's a done deal.
I forgot about that wax. I think I buried that deep down.
Yeah.
Dude, there's a couple things involving wax that we have buried deep down. And an epic story though, which is really in like year 5 about how we got the good wax. But I call a candle shop on Main Street. It was literally candles
off
on
Main.
Yeah. And I go, I need wax to seal my bottle. And they go, we don't do that. And I'm like, do you have red wax available? And she's like, I have like a giant candle that's like $100. I was like, well, that's not gonna work. So I drive to Michael's and I find this giant red candle for like $5. And I bring it home and I take Mom's expensive William and Sonoma double boiler and I melt this candle down and I dip the bottle in wax and it looks beautiful. And I drive back the next day, show her that it's sealed, and she's like, it's approved. The problem was, how do you get, initially there were corks.
Right.
How do you get the cork out with wax and there's no way to open it? But I didn't really give a shit. I was like, I got to get all of this made and done for the grand opening of the Annapolis Whole Foods.
Well, and we convinced everybody it's like wine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, use a wine opener.
Yeah. We also,
Yeah, they go, how are we going to get it open? I go, how do you get a bottle of wine open?
Yeah.
They go,
we're like, this is fancy.
yeah,
Like, this is fancy
like wine. So then we I called you down to help me make the first batch, right?
Yeah.
You didn't come for the first one. I think you were in season with Towson.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That was May.
No, we would have been
because
together.
it was May, beginning of May or late April.
2009.
Yep.
So I was
Oh yeah,
still
that's right.
playing.
He was still there. I was done.
You're right.
Yeah, I was still in college,
Right.
but not playing.
Correct.
That's right. I did. That's exactly right.
And so you and I made it, and it took forever.
Yeah.
It took 3.5 hours to make 48 bottles.
Yeah, that was horrible.
And we didn't know what we were doing. We were hand mixing it in bowls. It took forever. And so then we case them all up. I drive them to Whole Foods. We literally ended it like something crazy, like
It was
4 or
like, well,
5.
that was when Toomey made us come in at midnight. So it was 12 to 4.
Yep. So then I'm waiting outside of Whole Foods with the finished cases. All the labels are done, packaging's done, everything's done. I go and I hand Eric Brown the cases, and he's like, wow, man, these look beautiful. We don't have your organic certification on file. And I'm like, well, all the ingredients are organic, and I sent you those certifications. He's like, yeah, but you as a product need to be organic, and you got to certify your product organic and your facility, or you can't call yourself organic. And I'm like, but I'm done.
Yeah.
The website says Tessie Mae's
We
organic.
made this.
I embroidered an apron that says Tessie Mae's organic. The labels are printed. It says Tessie Mae's organic. Like cards are made. Like everything's done. He goes, yeah, no. So if you don't change it, you're not here for the grand opening, which I literally think was like the next day. So I call McAdams, the graphic designer. He's on a tube float trip, drunk. And I'm like, I need you to change everything to all natural. Tessie Mae's all natural. He's like, I'm on a tube, man. I was like, I don't give a fuck where you're at. I will pay you any amount of money to change this. And he's like, all right, I can do it in 3 hours, but I'm going to charge you like $1,500. And I was like, fuck, all right. And so he switches it to all natural. I go back to High Star Copy. We print out all the labels. We reapply the labels. We change the website. I call Eric Brown. I show him that it's all natural, and he goes, okay, you can come in for the grand opening. So we go in for the grand opening. We partner with that local lettuce company. I put on the apron that has changed to Tessie Mae's All Natural. It cost me $75. I chose khaki, which is a smart color to choose. When handing out oil-based dressings, it stays really clean, looks super sharp. And I went to the place in the mall. They're like, we just did Tessie Mae's Organic. I'm like, it's changed now. It's not that anymore. And so the doors open at
Usually 10.
10 a.m. And by 10:30, every bottle was sold. And so I go to Eric Brown and I'm like, hey man, I sold all that dressing. He's like, there's more in the back. And I'm like, no, I sold it all. He goes, you sold 48 bottles of dressing at $7.99 a bottle in 30 minutes. I'm like, yeah. He goes, go get more. And I'm like, I gotta go make more. You told me this was for the month, man. And so I call mom and I'm like, we sold all 48 bottles. This is amazing. I need you to make more dressing. And she goes, I'm in a Pilates class.
Yeah, because I was back in college.
Right. And I'm like, no. I was like, please, you got to go make dressing right now. She goes, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. So then I call you. I'm like, Brian, we got to go make dressing. You're like, I have class, bro. It's 10:45 in the morning. And I'm like, oh my God. So I go back into Eric and I'm like, yeah, you're not going to have any dressing till tomorrow. I gotta make it all tonight. And he goes, well, this was a fluke. So bring 6 cases tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, and that's all we'll need for the month. Well, we needed to switch bottles. So I had ordered these swanky ass,
Square.
like hand blown fucking rectangle bottles with cork from like, this is before Etsy was a thing, but they were like $2 a bottle. And I'm like, oh my God, I gotta go find more bottles. And so I start calling bottle places and I get in touch with Kohl's Containers in Baltimore.
Judy.
And I call and she's like, Kohl's Containers, how you doing? And I'm like, hi, Judy. This is Greg. I make salad dressing and I need an 8.5 ounce long rectangular bottle with a cork. She goes, hun, we ain't got nothing like that. We got a 10 ounce beer bottle though. And I'm like, is it square? And she's like, no, it's round. And I'm like, fuck it, I'll take it. I go, how many do you have? She goes, we got 55 cases of that. And I'm like, I need 6 cases of it. And she's like, okay, just come up and you can pay for it. So I have to call McAdams again. And I go, hey man, I need you to redesign the label for a round bottle. He's like, dude, I'm still on my trip, man. I'm like, I will pay you any amount of money to edit this. And he's like, all right, man. So I drive up to Kohl's Containers, back my SUV up. I think I was driving an Acura MDX at the time because I was still hustling insurance.
Yeah.
And these dudes roll out and they go, where do you want us to put it? I'm like, just hand them to me. I'm just going to put them in the trunk. And so then I go home. We make it again that night. You came back down.
Yep.
We redo it with round glass bottles, set up a demo the next day, 6 cases gone in 45 minutes. Go to Eric Brown. Hey man, all that dressing's gone. He goes, what the fuck are you putting in this shit? I'm like, I don't know, man, but people really like it. So from that, I think it was like a Wednesday to Sunday, we sold 55 cases of 12-pack bottles doing demos and set a national sales record for Whole Foods for salad dressing sold in a refrigerated set. And so there was then this moment of, you know, everything in life is either fuck yes or no. And it was like, well, this is a pretty good sign that we've figured something out and we need to keep doing it. And so then we all kind of discussed, well, how are we going to do it? You're still in school. You were about to leave, and then you were playing for
The Philadelphia Barrage.
Shout out to the Barrage. I was playing for the DC Bayhawks before they moved to Chesapeake. And you were like, I gotta get my feet wet and
Well, I was going to Barcelona. So that whole summer we were playing lacrosse.
Right. So
And
you
I was
did that,
also-
and then you left in the fall.
Yeah.
And came back. What was it? You came back for like Thanksgiving. No, we
No.
went to you for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I came back at the end of the fall semester.
So then we milked that. So we went Annapolis, Harbor East, Mount Washington, and then Bethesda. And we were in 4 stores. And we were making it at night. And then we would only drop it off in the beginning when they confirmed a demo.
Right.
And so if they did a demo, we would then load up all the cases for the demo, drive to the store, set up a demo, sell it all, give them an invoice. And then we did that. You then left. So then I was doing it by myself. You were still in college, so you couldn't do it. So then I was doing insurance and this. And every time we did a demo, we sold all of it. And so there was never a lack of demand. And then we also had a customer service option on our website, which was very smart to do early on because everyone was writing us notes of like, this is the greatest salad dressing I've ever had in my life. So we always knew that the lemon garlic dressing was good. We then just needed to figure out how were we going to deal with not having a full-time kitchen, not making enough money to actually do it full-time. How do we deliver part-time? Nobody gave a shit in the grand scheme of things. Like, we were a complete nuisance to Whole Foods.
Right.
And we needed to kind of like fully commit and break through if we were going to make it work. So I had kind of the deciding moment, which was after you got back. I went out to breakfast with the CFO of Bizzuto, Rick Mostyn,
Yep.
because you guys were boys with his stepson who played goalie at Maryland.
Jason? Oh, dude from the shore?
No,
Not
long
Jason?
blonde hair goalie.
Why can't I think it was Jason?
Whatever.
I'm drawing a blank.
Yep. So I was in my mode of interviewing CEOs to figure out how they became successful. And so he was like my 10th one I had interviewed. You know, I had interviewed Jerry South and John Lehman and Brett Anderson and Pettibone and Burt Winchester, and just kind of like all these guys that had done stuff in my mind that I thought was amazing and successful, and I wanted to learn how they had done it. So I got connected to Rick Mostyn, and we had breakfast at like 7 a.m. at a Bob Evans in Bowie.
Hell yeah.
And so I'm like, hey, I wanted to figure out how you became successful and this, that, and the other. And he's like, so tell me about yourself. Like, what are you up to? So I'm telling him about insurance, and, you know, I'm really good at it, but I want to maybe start my own. And, you know, I'm playing professional lacrosse, and I like that. And I've got this like little salad dressing. He's like, what? What do you have? I'm like, I have a salad dressing. He's like, where do you buy it? I'm like, well, right now in like these 4 Whole Foods. And so we spent the rest of the breakfast talking about the salad dressing and how if he could go back and do it over his life, which he has smashed it, he would do a physical product that somebody could hold. And he was like, I think his quote was, and you could show your children or your grandchildren, like, this is what I've done. Because he had done big, giant, beautiful, like real estate development stuff. He did the town center, right, where Whole Foods was. So that's kind of the universe. And I left there being like, this guy who has done it and made it would go back and do something like this little salad dressing that we're trying to do. So I called you and I said, dude, we either need to shut this down or you need to quit your job. Genevieve needs to quit her job. I'll fund it through my commissions, and we need to go full tilt. So then we met at my townhouse, and we put in Excel how many cases we would need to sell basically a day.
Yeah, a demo.
A demo to be able to pay your salary, which $500
bucks every 2 weeks.
Yep.
Ballin'.
So we took your professional lacrosse salary, which was also balling.
Yeah, $600 a game.
Say something. And then we said, okay, like, can you live off this? And then, Genevieve, can you live off this? And she was pregnant at the time. And so my commissions I was able to pay our bills. But I also said, like, you can't live at home. You got to fully commit. So then you went and
moved in with Mullen.
Yeah, downtown.
And Connor Gill. And me, and I was living in the closet.
And so then we went from being in 4 stores to 18.
Woo.
All the stores in Maryland, D.C., and Northern Virginia. And then things started getting big in terms of like, we had to make it multiple days in a row. And you would deliver it in your little Prius.
No, I had a BMW.
the 3 Series.
Yeah.
Stick Shift 3 Series.
And we sold that once. One of the Whole Foods employees was like, "How much we paying for this salad dressing?" I was like, "My dad bought me this car."
Yeah. Right. And then you got a white Prius
With no tints. That was the softest shit ever.
so soft.
Yeah,
But I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do.
Then I was rolling up to the Whole Foods employees like, saving the planet.
yeah, you were driving a Prius and I was driving a Subaru.
Hell yeah. And so then on Fridays, you would deliver it to all 18 stores. We would walk it through the front door in a grocery cart, hand somebody an invoice that didn't know what was going on. They would sign it. You would take a picture of it, text it to me. I would email their it would be
purchase.
their AP department, and I'd say, "We haven't been paid for this salad dressing yet. See attached signed invoice." All the while we had demos going, so then they would check the system and see that all the dressing had been sold. And then we would just keep doing that over and over and over and over and over again.
With no shelf space.
0 shelf space. Demos.
Yeah, demos only. They were like, "Well, you're not even in stock in our store." I'm like, "Because we sell out. That's how dope we are. We need more shelf space."
And so then we kept doing that, and then it got to the point where like the stores were super annoyed because it was inconsistent. And then finally Ricardo in the Annapolis store was like, "Why don't you get into the distribution center? I'm tired of ordering your shit through you. I just want to order it through the produce distribution center." So Eric Brown had been promoted to the global team, and then insert Matt Ray,
Shout out Matt Ray.
my boy Matt Ray. And I call him. That was our first call ever. I'm like, "Hey Matt, I was good friends with Eric Brown. Everybody's saying we should go in the produce distribution center. Like we crush it." And he goes, "Well, how much do you sell?" And we were selling a shitload.
Yeah, we're selling on average 8 cases every 2-hour demo.
In all the stores that we were
Yeah.
in. And they weren't keeping it in stock.
And then they're like, "Yeah, you want to average like 6 units a week." It's like, bro, we're selling 6 units every 10 minutes.
And so then I'm like, "Hey man, they want us to go in the distribution center." He goes, "You don't hold a candle to Cindy's Kitchen." And I'm like, "Really? Because all the stores are telling me that we crank." And he goes, "You don't." And I'm like, "Well, why don't you check the data, the store data, and give me a call back?" And he just kind of chuckles and he's like, "Yeah, okay." So I guess he checks it over the weekend. I get a call on Monday and he goes, "Hey, so I checked the data and it turns out you weren't full of shit. You guys are cranking. We want to put you in the distribution center and we want to put you in all 40 stores." And so right there, we doubled our store count. You got to stop driving it.
8A, B-Day.
8A, B-Day demo schedule on Fridays. And we got to drop it off to one place. But we had to drop off a pallet. And so for the first time
Saran
ever,
wrap.
yes,
Saran wrap.
we had to make enough dressing for a whole region
To
at once.
build a pallet.
Oh yeah, that
We
was
had to find a pallet,
Yeah.
which we didn't have, and then we had to stack it.
Where does one find a pallet? A pallet.
I need one pallet. I actually think we stole it from like the back of a grocery store
Yeah.
or something.
Or Big Steve was like, "Go check Home Depot."
No,
Yeah.
by the mall. No, by the mall there was that random. What's that building? There's like a bank there now.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
And
And
it-
they would,
It's like a window supply company. Or
and
they
they would just have a stack
they would
of
have
pallets.
stacks of
Oh,
pallets,
yeah.
and we drove there one night.
You just would grab.
At like 10 o'clock, and we grabbed like 4 pallets.
Get out of
And
here!
we fucking spent, we're like, skirt!
Scatter.
And so then we we rented a Penske truck because it had to be dock high, which we didn't know what that meant. And we assembled the cases, but then we didn't know how to seal it. So
That made us so dizzy.
Bro. So we go to
Well, and we
the...
had to build the pallet in the Penske.
Yeah, we built it in the Penske.
stevedore.
Yes.
Because we had to stack it in there because we didn't have a way to move the pallet
And
around.
we had no lights in there. It was pitch black. So then we go, well, how are we going to wrap it? And so I drove to the dollar store and bought like 80 frickin' saran wraps. And we saran wrapped it like 1,000 times.
And it still didn't hold it.
And it still didn't hold it. And we're like, oh my God, how are we going to get it to this distribution center? So now I think our arrival time for
The appointment was like 12:30 at night.
yeah. So we decide that we're going to try and strap it down. And then who stayed in the back
It was
down
Dad,
50?
Didn't Dad come with us? Or
Yes,
was that
he drove with us, but I think I drove and I think you stayed in the back.
I was
it.
holding it
Yes.
so it didn't fall over.
Right.
Because we didn't know to tie the saran wrap to the pallet.
Right.
We were just wrapping.
It was dumb.
And it was a pallet in the
Yes.
middle of a big ass Penske.
Yeah. And so then I'm driving down 50, going 20 miles an hour in a Penske in the middle of the night with Brian in the back holding it.
And I'm talking potholes catching you. Whoop, whoop. You're like,
And so we get all the way to their distribution
Landover.
in Lanham.
Oh,
Or is
yeah,
it
Landover.
or Landover? Same thing.
same thing.
And we back up and we need to distract these dudes because there's only one pallet. It's saran wrap and like it's leaning over and it's not stable. So we come out, we're like, hey, we got this dressing and it's the first time here. And the guys are like, why are you talking?
And they're just whipping it. Whipping it. I'm just like,
Right,
I
they
don't
got the
think-
double long forks.
Yeah,
There's
And
like-
so we start talking to the dude and we go, well, we're going to give you dressing, man. We got some extra dressing. And we want to walk with you to where the pallet's going to go because we want to see it and take some pictures. And the dude's like, what are you boys talking about? So he has to drive slow because we're walking near him, but we're walking slow because it's going to fall over.
Yeah, this thing is like this.
And so we walk with him to our pallet spot. We're taking pictures of the pallet spot. We give him some dressing. And we literally drove back and we're like, holy shit, we did it. We like dropped off our first pallet ever at the distribution center. They didn't call us that anything was broken. There was nothing broken. And then we had to roll out all of those Whole Foods with demos.
Yeah.
So we drove to,
Kentucky, Ohio,
Ohio.
Pittsburgh. Yeah.
And I went the Kentucky route.
Yep. I went the Ohio route.
Yep.
And then we met
in, I want to say we met in like Cincinnati.
Yeah. Mason, Ohio.
Yep. And that I showed up in Kentucky because we were so competitive. It was like, I'm going to sell 100 bottles in 4 hours, you loser.
Yeah, it's like, bro, my homie's up in Chagrin.
And so we get to Lexington, Kentucky in this little Whole Foods that is basically the size of a double wide trailer.
Yeah. And it was still called the other thing.
Yeah, it was probably, I don't know.
What was it called before Whole Foods?
Fresh Fields.
Fresh Fields.
Yeah.
It was a Fresh Fields.
And I set up a demo and there was one person that came through that store in 4 hours. And I obviously convinced them to buy a bottle.
Yeah.
And then Genevieve's like, how are you gonna like call your brothers after selling one bottle of salad dressing at this demo during this rollout that's gonna basically determine our success in the Mid-Atlantic region?
It's like, you better buy all those.
I go, I'm buying them. She goes, we don't have any money. I go, I'm putting it on a credit card. So I fucking bought every bottle. And then I texted you and I'm like, crushed it. Sold like 48 bottles. And the person at the checkout line was like, why are you buying all these? I'm like, I'm giving them out. You want one? She was like, yeah, sure. So I'm like outside handing out dressing to people.
Oh my God.
And so then we did that whole tour. But that demo tour set us up for word of mouth to spread, because what we didn't realize was that all of those people would end up getting promoted to different stores in different regions, and they all remembered these brothers showing up and doing demos, buying bottles if they weren't sold, handing them out for free. So the demos and the demo tour across the Mid-Atlantic region set us up for kind of the future, getting in additional regions. No one had ever done demos like that before. And we get asked all the time, why did you guys do demos? And so one of my, I think it was my second job, I was sitting in a model home.
I remember bringing you lunch.
Well, so my second job was on the Eastern Shore in that 55 plus community, which you never brought me lunch.
That was too far.
Yeah, you waited until I was on Riva Road. And it was a 55 plus community, and there was like 10 different models to choose from. But there were 3 models you could walk through. And 90% of the models chosen, even though there was 10, were the models that people could touch, see, feel, and walk through. And so what they decided was they were going to make the most expensive models to walk through the most expensive ones, because they knew 90% of the people that were going to walk through there were going to buy what they could see. They couldn't conceptually go, oh, well, I like this one because it's a little bit smaller and it's almost the same thing and it's more cost effective. It was like, no, we're going to trick this out and everybody's going to buy it. And so when we initially did that first demo, I was like, I went to the produce people. I'm like, yo, so how many demos can I do in a month? And they go, you can do as many demos as you want. I'm like, well, why doesn't everybody do demos? And they go, I don't know. I'm like, so you're telling me I can walk in here, set up a demo, tell my story, hand out samples whenever I want? They go, well, you got to call us ahead of time. And I was like, okay. So we started doing demos. And I actually remember one day I'm doing a demo and there was like a cheese guy there. And he thought he was high class, right? He walks over and he's like, hey, what's up? You know, I'm with Subject Cheese. I'm like, hey, okay, cool. And he's like, can you believe we have to do these demos? I'm like, I love doing demos. And he goes, I hate it. It's the worst part of my job. No one likes doing them. I'm like, why? He goes, because you got to stay in the store and you got to talk to all these people and it's a waste of time. Traditional marketing methods are just more effective and they're better. And I'm like, but this is a direct return on our time and you get to hear what the customer's thinking. And he was like, I hate them. And so maybe it was rebellious joy of us trying to figure out our own path. But I was thinking about, okay, anytime people can try something, they will buy it if it's legit. It eliminates all of the doubt. It eliminates all of the shelf space battling that takes place. I don't have to rely on a shelf talker. I don't have to rely on any of this stuff. All I have to do, which is difficult, is find personable people that know the story and believe in it. And then they can tell the story, and this is how we can grow the brand. And I remember talking to, some PE person at a conference, and they were like, well, I want to know what you can do without demos. And at the time, I'm like, okay, that's fine, but why? If people try it and they buy it, and then they get brought into the fold, why wouldn't you just do that everywhere? And it was interesting that we literally did the opposite of everything that we were told by the consultants in how we manufacture stuff, how you market it, how you tell a story, what the packaging should look like. You know, we literally did the opposite. Initially, it was like the brightest colors imaginable, right? And then everybody copied that. So then we did super, super clean with bold colors. And then everybody copied that. And so now we're about to do something new again that no one has done. And we'll see how long it takes for people to copy it. But this concept of I have an idea, I need to go find experts to talk to or consultants to talk to, I honestly can't think of one in 13 years of grinding that has been right. And, you know, they're not like super wrong, but they like to take the least offensive, softest, easiest path that doesn't guarantee success at all. It may guarantee that you don't go down in a fiery blaze, but it's almost like they're setting you up for this slow death. They're like setting you up for this non-offensive mediocrity that doesn't take too much effort, doesn't guarantee success, doesn't give you any real answers. And maybe that's what it is. It's the fear of getting the real answer. Like, I want a hard no or a hard yes. Don't give me a fucking maybe.
Well, and they don't fight for the consumer.
Right.
Which is the craziest part. It's
Right.
like we make all of our decisions and we had to go against the grain the entire time because without the consumer fighting for us, you have nothing. So that's always what confused me about the consultants. Like, well, if we make it cheaper,
Yeah.
we'll just make more money.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, but people have to eat that and that's bad for them. And they're like, yeah, whatever. It's like, but we can get more money to the retailer and they'll give us more space. I'm like,
But people don't want it.
but like, it's going to make them sick.
Well, here's the case study on this. I remember talking to some recent MBA student. They're like, well, you know, I finished reading the case studies on salad dressing and the white space, and that just seems like a very crowded area with this and that and this and that and this and that. And so I don't really understand why you're doing what you're doing. You're in the refrigerated set, you know, that doesn't have legs and this and that. And I just listened to them talk for a while and I go, well, what if we're the case study though? What if we're a case study that someone's going to read about in 10 years? Then what? So you want me to change everything that I'm doing for something that happened 20 years ago that may or may not be relevant? What if we're the case study? And obviously they're like, well, I mean, I don't know, the probability of that is very low. And I'm like, well, the probability of anything is fucking low outside of death and taxes. And so why not swing for the fences and why not do everything in our power to make it successful? And it's hard, right? Like, you invented clean manufacturing. We had to set up a manufacturing plant. We brought in consultants that didn't know what we were doing.
They all gave bad advice.
They
They're
gave
like,
us horrible advice.
basically change the product,
Right.
put fillers and gum in it to make it easier. Because I mean, thinking back on it, was just the amount of effort you had to. It was just such a massive effort to even just get it off the ground.
Yeah.
Because you had to literally do every step of the process. You know, it was us doing every single thing, and like that much effort, people aren't willing to put out.
Well, and then it's so hard to even launch a product that meets your quality expectations. You know, we handmade it for how many years?
Double whisker.
3 years.
I mean, we were out there freaking hand squeezing lemons.
We were hand squeezing lemons. We were hand chopping garlic. We were whisking it.
Pouring it through a funnel.
Yeah. And it was like, because we would call a co-packer and they go, well, you got to put xanthan gum in it. And we don't use fresh garlic. We don't use real lemons. And hey, yeah, this is our lemon replacement. Okay, what is it? Water, citric acid, and
Yellow.
lemon, what was it? Lemon natural flavor. And do you remember the bucket
Yeah.
of citric acid? You were with me.
Yeah.
And it literally said, if this touches your skin, immediately go to like the rinsing station and get medical attention because it's basically gonna burn your skin off. And they go, yeah, it gives that good natural lemon taste. I'm like, well, why don't you just use lemons? It's inconsistent in terms of the potency and it's expensive. And I'm like, but when you use this, does it taste like real lemons? Kinda.
It's like, sir, you look not well. Like, do you eat this?
Oh, love it.
Oh, yeah, that's in all of our best products. I was like,
Yeah, no.
like we might just have to loosen up the rotators and just, keep whisking.
Brian's freaking rain suit with the whistle.
The rain suit.
Yeah.
So, but like going back to fully committing and looking for signs or looking for omens or like being recognized for the effort and having true intentions with your effort. I honestly look back on what we did and it actually doesn't make any sense, right? Like you have to live in this split personality world of taking massive risk that doesn't make any sense, that will end everything if you mess it up. And then the minute you take that risk and it works, hunker down, figure out how to make that work to justify the risk. And then you have to do it over and over and over and over again. And it implodes people. It like eats away at their soul. And, I mean, the amount of people we have watched flame out and go down in the most destructive fire blaze tailspin. It's insane.
Yeah, nobody was like, yeah, we're good here. I'll put my 2 weeks notice. It's like, I'm out of here.
Read between the lines,
we got a
motherfucker.
lot of read between the lines.
And then, like, they don't even go out quietly either. They go out and they're like, these motherfuckers ruined my life.
It's like, you chose to be here. Like, this is America, homie. Well, and that's the other thing that I think is funny. I had a buddy of mine. He calls me, he goes, do you remember the athletic director at Towson? That was like the old school, old Miss guy that like basically retired at Towson. He was my freshman year. He was there. And then he left when you were in high school. But nonetheless, he was just always talking about like sports makes you a very hard and tough person in a very public setting.
Yes. That's interesting.
Right?
Yep.
And I always thought that was really interesting because it was Casey Cittadino, he brought it up and he was like, you guys are so willing to publicly put what you don't know on display just so you can learn and get better with no emotion to it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, think about the chances of becoming a Division I athlete.
They're
less
low.
than 1%.
Yep.
Becoming a professional athlete.
So it's like literally, it's like 1% of the 1%.
Yeah, 1%. Yeah, and so in my eyes, it's like, well, whatever percentage of brands fail, whatever percentage of
29 out of 30 fail.
Yeah, 29 out of 30. So in my eyes, I'm like, perfect. Like these are the stats that I understand. These are the stats that my brothers and I understand. And it's like, who cares what you don't know?
Well, a lot of people.
Well, that's the thing that's crazy to me. People are like, you have to know it and you have to get really good at it and just repeat it over and over again. And I'm like, that sounds horrible.
Well, it's like you have to have faith in your ability to know that you can figure it out. That has always been our belief of like, I don't know anything that's going to happen tomorrow. Everything we're experiencing, we're like a little kid. Like everything we're experiencing is for the first time.
And it's awesome.
You know, it's
Sometimes
like
it sucks.
we're experiencing ice cream for the first time. This shit is amazing. We're experiencing, snow for the first time. Wow, I should probably put on a coat next time. That was really cold. But we've developed the confidence in our ability to figure it out. And you were the most stubborn about figuring it out because
you guys also said, hey, Matt, ask questions, but then figure it out. So I'd ask you questions and you guys would say, well, just figure it out.
Well, the hope was, as you were saying it out
right,
loud,
that
were
you
like,
would figure it out.
No, but you were literally just like, I'm waiting. Tell me.
Right. But then I learned how to figure it out.
Right.
But you also, I would always say, you had to come the furthest in the shortest amount of time.
That's true.
Which is also
Because
Yeah,
I
that is
was
true.
in college playing Division I lacrosse game, blacked out.
Yep.
And then on Saturday mornings, I'd show up to the Mount Washington Whole Food to do demos where all my buddies were hanging out. And I'm like, why am I even here? Like, everybody's hanging out. I got to do this shit. But, the ability to figure it out now, like, I appreciate it so much. Like, it's the best life skill to have to just be able to look at something and figure it out.
Well, and ask questions, right? Like, why are we doing it like this? And I think us ignoring the experts and figuring it out, and sometimes it worked really, really well, and sometimes it didn't, but we learned when it didn't. And then we also learned when it did because we're like, well, you guys are just taking the softest, weakest path possible, and you're scared to fail publicly. And so you're taking this roundabout way of just getting to the point. And I'm actually a little worried about today's youth, and I'll use some of the boys we coached in their lady endeavors when we were out with all the young bucks at Acme. Remember when Woodall saw that young lady eyeing him up, and we go talk to her. He goes, I'm gonna look her up on Instagram, then I'm gonna DM her, then I'm gonna ask if she wants to then potentially meet up soon. And I'm like, but she's right there, like literally right there. He goes, yeah, we don't do that. I'm like, but you'll get your answer. He's like, nah. And I'm like, I'll go do it for you.
Excuse me.
I go, excuse
Do
me.
you see that guy over
Yeah,
there?
this guy right here. Thoughts on him? She's like, I think he's cute. I go, would you like some beers? He's got a whole bucket of them that we're paying for. And she's like, absolutely. And he was mesmerized. How did you do this?
Just like we tell our kids, Alex, use your words.
Use your words and don't be afraid to fail. Like, go find the most direct path to the answer you're looking for, or not so much the answer you're looking for, the question you want answered. And when it's a hard yes or a hard no, take it, water off a duck's back if it's no, and move on quickly to the next one. And I think we have done a really good job getting a million no's in the worst possible moments, keeping our chin up and moving on and saying the same thing until we basically, we did that from 2009, 2010, 2011, and then we moved into our manufacturing plant officially January 2013, but really we got the keys October 2012. You find me another group of people that are going to hand make salad dressing for 3 regions of Whole Foods for 3.5 years. You're not going to find them because it doesn't make any sense.
But you know what happened to me the other day?
What?
I didn't have avocado ranch at the house, and I didn't know what to do. I was like,
It's delicious.
Claire, how am I going to eat? I was like, I need this dressing. And then I actually thought about it. I was like, holy shit, like, we got to make sure we get the supply locked in forever.
Yeah.
I was like, because we got grandkids that are on the way. We got 11 kids. They're going to have kids. I was like, it was one of those moments where I completely took myself down this path. I was like, we have to defend this forever. I was like, what are these kids gonna eat?
But it's funny you say that. What are these kids gonna eat? Because the other part when we were initially listening to the experts was someone's gonna just do this and they're gonna kill you. You're not big enough to compete against Heinz and Hidden Valley and McCormick. They're just gonna take your recipe and they're going to redo it. And you were gonna be wiped from the face of the earth. And they never did because they weren't willing to do the hard stuff. They only wanted to do the easiest part. And that is the fear of if we stop doing what we're doing, we become a cog in a system, and then everything that we fought for, no thickening agents, using real ingredients, no refined sugar, using the best oils, doing it the proper way.
It tastes amazing.
It tastes amazing. All of that becomes almost for nothing, right? It's like a blip on the radar of like, there was 13 years where you could get the best salad dressing in the world in a bottle.
Well, look at Justin's peanut butter, Crave beef jerky. I mean, I can go down the list of guys who fought the fight like us.
Well, and Honest Tea, they just shut that brand down. It's not a thing anymore.
Well, and that's
Which
the
is
thing.
crazy.
That is crazy, man.
So think about like when you hear the word experts,
Yeah.
it's like not one of these people has done anything,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like there's teachers and doers, and I always thought that was such a interesting thing. Where it's like, you know, teachers teach, doers do, and we were doing,
Yep.
and we were getting teachers to have us stop doing.
Yep.
And give us a process from another. And the beauty of us three is we just have a very simple mentality where it's like, well, prove it.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of like old school
Yeah, it's like
shit talking.
Right,
Like,
say it to my face.
say it to my face.
Say it to my
Say
face.
something.
And that is
What you gonna do about it?
and I will say the other part why I think we have been successful is we are willing to take it to the Annapolis High School parking lot level, which no one is willing to do. And so that does give you a level of confidence where you walk into a room and you're like, I'm fine with being wrong, but if you're right, you better be real right, and you better be confident enough to say it to my face or step outside.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm always ready.
Yeah, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well, I think this basically takes us to, that was 2009 and 2000, really that was 2009 to like mid 2010, because we got into the distribution center, 40 stores, still making it. And then I guess we'll get into the next part, the next podcast, we'll get into the Southeast region, which is getting out of local status, the Rocky Mountain region, which was after that, the turn down from the Northeast region, and
Making 4 products.
right, Matt, my boy Matt Ray.
Shout out Matt Ray again.
Yeah, and we'll dig into kind of mid 2010 to 2011 on the third episode. So,
That
yep, Big Matt Vetter is going to have a lot to say on that one.
Yeah, just put it in my calendar, and I'll be there.
So you don't see it?
you don't accept it.
Yeah. All right, anything to say from the beginning?
Seattle? I'm going to be in Seattle tomorrow. I'll see you there.
We did do that. That was wild. All right, we're out.